Welcome to the Living Clean podcast. I'm your co-host Mason S. With me as always is Travis K. This podcast is not meant to replace meetings, sponsorship, step work, or service. This is meant to be just another tool in your recovery toolbox. Our guests are here to share their experience, strength, and hope with recovery through Narcotics Anonymous. Thank you for joining us. All right, welcome back to the Living Clean podcast. I'm Mason S. I'm an addict. I'm here with my partner in crime, OTK. Yeah. We're back for episode number 2. So we made it to a little over 5 countries and 16 states with our first episode. So we're excited about that. A lot of good feedback from Chase. We got another special guest. His name is Mr. Ryan R. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm blessed, man. Good to have another day on the team.
Good to have another. Hey, so if you don't mind,
I didn't get the same answer I gave Travis a while ago, so give me an attaboy.
Well, we were trying to set you up for that. We didn't really mind, but it's okay. So give us your clean date and tell us who your home group is and where it's at.
All right, my clean date is 9/29/86, and my home group is Survival Group, Florence, Alabama. I've just recently gone back to it after being away from it for about 15 years.
So 1986.
That's before you was born.
That's before I was even born, man. Tell us, for all of us up in Tennessee that don't have enough fingers and toes, how many years is that?
That's 36.
36 years. That's awesome. So that actually leads us right into my first question, man. So what was it like getting clean in the 80s?
That's really a hard question to ask because I don't know anything about what it's like to get clean in any other time. You know, NA was still kind of a novelty at the point when I got clean, and we being the local fellowship that I was a part of, took a lot of crap out of people in AA, and probably a lot of it was deserved. They referred to Survival Group as Circus World, and I said the people that I brushed up against. Okay?
Right.
And I'm not saying everybody in AA felt that way, but you know how we are. We've never met a conspiracy theory we didn't like. And it's us and them and they, and, you know, they kind of poked fun at us and said we wasn't ever going to fly. And hey, we're still flying, man. You know, and all them some bitches that said that are gone.
How's the landscape changed as far as NA as it relates to Alabama? Like, how's the landscape changed from 1986 until now?
Well, I don't think we have an inferiority complex anymore because we don't have to. It's, you know, just that. And I know we're still in a minority, but you and I both know, all of us know, that the days of the old dyed-in-the-wool, purity old, nothing else but an alcoholic are fucking history, man. You know, that don't hardly exist anymore, even though they their own drug-specific fellowship.
So, Ryan, did Survival Group actually start in Sheffield or did it start in Florence?
Started in Florence at Trinity Episcopal Church in the summer of 1980.
Well, I've heard your story before, and I've heard you mention the fruit stand in Sheffield.
Well, that's where Survival Group was meeting when I got clean. And they had met like 3 other places at least before I got clean. And one of them was with the community agency on Dr. Hicks. And I'm not sure where the other one was. For the first year I was clean, we met at the old fruit stand in Sheffield, and it's not there anymore. You know, there's a credit union on that lot where it used to be.
All right. So you came in 1986. How long was it before you started to realize that this thing may work for you, and you kind of gained the hope that Narcotics Anonymous was, you know, maybe the path that you should take as far as your recovery goes?
Well, my memory is so piss poor that it's really hard for me to give you a good answer to that. I wasn't here for that when I first got here. I was here to stay out of the penitentiary. That was my motivation for getting clean. And I had at least enough self-honesty. I'd tried enough of doing it my way in the past to know that my way wasn't going to work. And I wasn't going to stay clean for the sake of being clean. I was staying clean for the sake of not going to prison. And that's kind of what the choices that I was given. And, I'm grateful that my consequences of my past kept me here for them until I could ultimately be here for me. And I would say that process took several years.
So you've been clean a little over or well over 3 decades now. So I know there's been some low points surely over that period of time. Would you care to share with us what some of those was and how you got through it?
I went through a divorce, which there's nothing really uncommon about that. But the good thing about that process was that I got to watch my sponsor go through one when he had 10 years clean, and I watched him go through another one when he had 20 years clean. So when it was my turn, I had that experience, strength, and hope to fall back on. And I knew that I could go through that process without, I hate to say having to get high, because I hadn't had the desire to use in 35 years. Does that mean it don't pop in my head? No, it does not mean that. But it means that it hadn't came and camped out on my porch and stayed there all day long in decades. And that's how I define the desire to use.
Since you've lost that desire and it hadn't been there in 35 years, so tell us in which ways you do see the disease active in your life today.
Anywhere that there's possible obsession and compulsion. Food, sex, money, spending money, acquiring money, anything that I like that remotely changes the way I feel, the disease is going to be a part of that. Some of it's destructive, but not all of it is. There's good things we can do with obsession and compulsion.
I've not experienced obsession and compulsion being delivered from obsession and compulsion. It's still there. It's about finding those healthy things, to try to channel that obsession in. That's been my experience.
It's just like character defects. I've never understood the 6th step, and I've been here for a while. And what the hell is the point of me asking God to do something that he, she, or it ain't never going to do? I've got every defect I walked in the door with, and I believe I'm going to die with them. I just don't have to die of them. Now, the shortcomings are kind of a different matter because they've been greatly reduced. The 7th step lives in between inspiration and action for me. And I've always got a choice to do the same old shit that I used to do. I just don't have to go do it today. Sometimes I do it anyway. I know y'all don't know nothing about that.
I don't know anything about that. Yeah.
Maybe a little.
I know the fellowship has changed a lot over that period of time. Hell, it's changed quite a bit, since we've been around. Was it difficult for you to deal with some of those changes? Because I know I've heard it shared a bunch of times about, I grew up the old school way where they used to tell me to sit down, shut the fuck up, and if I want to know how to use, I'll ask you. How's your mindset on that changed over the past 3 decades, or has it changed?
Well, I guess it must have, because I don't really do that much anymore. But I can remember sitting in a meeting at the fruit stand, regurgitating some treatment speak bullshit that I picked up somewhere along the way. And old boy sitting across the table from me says, "You might ought to think about setting the fuck down and shutting the fuck up. Well, you ain't got nothing to share but the goddamn disease. If we don't know about getting high, we'll ask you. If we don't know about recovery, we'll let somebody know something about it. Talk about that." And I told Terry about that experience, and he said, "God damn, I'd have left and never come back." I said, "Well, I didn't, and both of us are still here, and that was 36 years ago, and he's got 41 years clean now, and didn't kill him to tell me that. And I got 36 years clean. It didn't kill me for him to tell me that, and I suspect it was right on time."
Talking about those changes, do you think it's important that we continue to change and adapt throughout the fellowship? I'm sure in 1986, you never thought you'd be on a podcast on a computer screen talking about Narcotics Anonymous, 30 something years later. Do you think it's important that we continue to grow and adapt and find new ways to reach that still sick and suffering addict who maybe needs to be reached in a different way than we were reached,
I believe if we don't grow and adapt, we'll perish. I really believe that. Of course, I couldn't foresee myself being on a podcast in front of a computer. There weren't computers. And damn sure wasn't podcasts. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. There was no crack. I got clean in the BC area before crack.
Before crack.
At least in Florence, Alabama, there was.
Well, let's go a different direction. Something else you probably didn't foresee coming, and that was around 2020 when the pandemic hit. Talk about kind of how big a change that was. And I kind of know your experience with this, but share it with people because you never know. We may be forced back into that someday. Share. I know your experience is positive, and a lot of people, that's been around for a long time never really gave it a shot. And I know that you did, and it turned out okay.
Well, it's probably the most important thing that has happened to my recovery in the last 10 or 15 years. And I say that because, I got two old friends, Don and Rusty, that have been doing Zoom meetings for years and have been after me to get on there and do it with them. And yeah. I mean, I noticed y'all got the same password that they do on that meeting.
That's kind of the universal password, NA password.
But I kind of made a business decision to quit going to face-to-face meetings out of fear, and my home group, it didn't quit meeting, but it quit meeting indoors. It met in a shelter. So, out behind the church, which in February, that's not really a nice place to be. Survival group never missed a meeting, not a single one. And that's one of the real blessings of having your own place where you're not beholden to anybody else. Like a church, you're kind of at their mercy. They say you can't come, you can't come. But that forced me to become involved in Zoom meetings. And as a result of that, I kind of stumbled in some meetings in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And I just fell in love with those people. A lot of people might say that was a God deal, and maybe it was, I certainly don't understand he, she, or it. And the day I start telling you I do, you better get the hell away from me. But that I just connected spiritually and emotionally with those folks. And I just, and they were meeting like 3 times a day. And I went to most of them for a while. This was like in February of 2020. And I really got kind of hooked on it, and developed a relationship. I've got a sponsee that lives there. I just I got Terry hooked on it too. And as a result of that, when he hit a big financial home run here a year or so ago, his wife got a new car, and he and I got a trip to Ireland out of the deal. And so we got to go to Belfast and spend 10 days there back in July of 22. Expanded the relationships that I have there. And, he's a whole lot better at maintaining contact. He has contact with people on a daily basis. Those people are in my thoughts and prayers on a regular basis. And I'm going to try to go back in October. They're having the Irish National Convention in Belfast in October. And I'm going to try to wrangle up a few $1,000 and carry my fat ass back over there again.
So how long has NA been in Ireland?
It's, I can't tell you exactly that, but it's got to be close to 30. There are people there in the high 20s clean. And I'll tell you a neat story about one of my old timer friends in Belfast. He told me about sitting in a meeting one day, and 2 guys with ski masks and AK-47s walked in the meeting and says, We catch any of you fucking Catholics down here again, we're going to kill your ass. I went, that's what you call a willingness check, boys. And they managed to keep all that stuff. And I mean, that stuff, that underlying stuff is still there and alive and well, but they keep it out of the meetings. And somehow or another, the people in the neighborhood or whatever fixed it where they didn't have that happen again. But makes you grateful for our lack of problems that we have, if you think about it.
We don't even know. Most of us over here in the States don't even know how fortunate and how damn spoiled we are, really, as far as being able to attend meetings for the most part, you know. And there's some people that are really going through a lot just to be able to make a meeting. You know, I think about the story, like the story you just told, the story about, you know, in the Middle East where women are meeting in secret and, you know, they're risking their lives to come to a meeting, you know. And we just don't know how fortunate we are.
It kind of reminds me of those early days when NA first started, when two addicts would meet, that they had the possibilities of going to jail, but they most certainly wasn't going to lose their lives.
You got that right.
You know, what keeps you coming back today, man? I know you've returned to in-person meetings and you're still doing a little bit of Zoom on the Sunday mornings, but, you know, after all this time, and I know you just celebrated a birthday, what keeps you going, man?
Well, because I like it. You know, I've replaced old bad habits with new good habits. And I don't have to go to meetings. I get to go to meetings. I saw a friend of mine Tuesday night. This guy's coming up on 2 years from me. And I've been concerned about him for a year, you know, and he walked up to me and said, I know, I need to go to a meeting. And I thought to myself, no, man, you need to go to a bunch of damn meetings. The meeting ain't going to do you too much good. But I didn't say that. I probably should have. It's not like me to filter myself out too much, but, as y'all both well know. I come because I like it, and I come because I want to. And are my motives pure? God, I hope not. I hope I don't ever get where I'm pure about anything.
So, tell us a little bit about, you know, coming up through, you know, the late part of the 80s and coming through the 90s. What's some of the service that you were involved in that kind of helped the development of, you know, the fellowship down there?
Well, I was involved in both group, area, and regional service during that period of time. Of course, that's the period of time when there was all the upheaval around the production of the 4th and 5th editions of the basic text, and the introduction of the baby blues, and the, you know, all the political back and forth that was going on. And as I said before, I never met a conspiracy theory I didn't like, you know, and I was drawn right into that controversy. And I might be the only person that you know, I know you know another one too. I received a cease and desist letter from the law firm representing Narcotics Anonymous World Services. Well, let me tell you something. That'll create some feelings. And the main feeling that I felt upon receiving that letter was shame. And I felt ashamed because I hadn't truly done anything to merit that letter. And I was kind of wishing that I had. And I still kind of feel that way. And hell, there are a lot of people got high behind all that shit, man, and left NA, and some of them died, you know, and some of them have come back and some of them hadn't. But I kind of got to the point for me that I can't let that shit keep me out of here, man. And I'm not going to sit around with a knot in my stomach anymore. And I believe there's some people I'm pretty close to that still got that knot.
So what is service like today for you?
I'm probably not as willing as I used to be. I am my group's secretary, and I'm doing kind of a moderately acceptable job there. Okay. And I've recently, Shannon asked me to commit to doing one night a month, one Monday night a month at the Sheffield jail, H&I. And I told him I'd do that. We'll see how long it ain't started yet. So, but that's about all I'm willing to do. You know, I've been before where I had 4 or 5 service commitments at once. And my experience with that is that I don't do any of them justice. You know, I think I'm much better off doing one thing and doing it at least approaching well than doing a whole bunch of stuff half-assed. So.
You were talking about, the history with the baby blues and how that, affected us, how it affected you. What do you think you could say to some, some members that'll be involved in the, whether we like it or not, there's a political side to this thing. What would you say to them about preventing that in the future? What are some of the things you look back on and you hope that we learn so that we don't repeat the history of that?
Well, I think it goes back to the first tradition and unity. And when I share about the first tradition, I share about I've got some experience being involved in and fomenting disunity. And the best way that I know of to do that is name calling, finger pointing, taking sides, them and they, us and them. And, my experience is try to love people where they are and don't try not to divide up into teams. But I mean, I feel hypocritical when I say that because I'm a team picking motherfucker, by God, and just, but I try to not be real obnoxious about it.
To me, when you really think about the first tradition and how we apply it, regardless of what side you are on any of the discussions, because I mean, we're not all going to agree, and there's going to be those times where the large sum of people believe that it should be this way, and another large sum of people should believe that it's that way. But there's room for all of us in NA, if we really have an understanding of the tradition and we practice it. Not letting those differences drive us out of the rooms, but as well as I do, that's a hell of a lot easier said than done sometimes.
Amen, buddy. I can go us and them in a heartbeat.
So Ryan, share your story about your experience with wanting to get something rid of in your home group and how that worked out.
I'll share that story. I sure will. What you're talking about is my experience with the Lord's Prayer. We used to often open and close the meeting with that prayer, and I there was a woman that was a part of our group. She was born overseas, and she was not a Christian, and she would stand in a circle. We used to circle up back in the pre-COVID days, and she would stand there and not participate in the prayer. And I thought to myself, something's wrong with this picture. And the Serenity Prayer is pretty nebulous. The word God is very nebulous. It can have a lot of different connotations. But our Father who art in heaven, that ain't nebulous at all, and I just felt like it was wrong for us to be using that prayer. So I made a motion at a business meeting for us to stop using it. And it got seconded and passed. And you'd have thought I had made a motion to start sacrificing babies in the meeting hall up there or something, I mean, people got their panties in the wall. We ended up with 31 people at a survival group business meeting on a Tuesday night. And my motion to do away with that went down in flames, 29-2. And the only person that voted with me was my ex-wife, and she never voted with me about anything hardly. So what's that about? But and I just, I kind of felt that like a stinging personal defeat. But I had a choice. I could practice some acceptance on that, or I could take my toys and go home. And at that point in time, I knew I didn't have any home to go to. I was home, and I needed to let that go. And buddy, let me tell you, I didn't do another thing about that, and it just went away all by itself without really anybody doing any damn. Because I think people thought about it for the next year or so, or how the hell ever long it took. But that was kind of God showing up and showing out for me, man. And I'll never forget that.
I noticed that too with our group. I know that we had to get to a point, but sometimes the point that we're trying to get to doesn't have to necessarily be right this moment, as long as we're working to get there. And I struggle more than anybody with taking baby steps to there, because I get real selfish and self-centered, and I think that I know better than the other people or the group. And it's not that it's never going to get there. When we get emotion like that shut down, it doesn't mean that it's the right or wrong thing to do. It just maybe the time's not right yet, and people are not ready to accept that change, whether it goes against the traditions or not. Because we broke traditions for a while, but eventually we got there. And I had it was actually Stacy shared with me, how difficult that a lot of those changes were, because when they first got clean, that's what the meeting was to them, regardless of what they were doing right or wrong. That's what that meeting was. So over a period of time, as that began to change, it was really hard for them. And I never looked at it from that. I was new. So I just heard my sponsor say, well, you're not really supposed to do that. And I came in, guns a-blazing, and
I followed him.
And Travis followed me. That was my 29-2 right there. So, and we got shut down a lot, just like you're talking about. But eventually, it works out. And the reason why I share that is because somebody may be listening, who's going to walk in there and finally study all month, like I used to do. Study all month, think about this motion, write it up, use the correct terms, take it right in there, and then get it shot down in a blaze of glory. And it's real easy to say, fuck every one of y'all. I'm never coming back to this place. You didn't do, take my ball and go home, like you said a minute ago. So I think that's important for people to know that, just keep coming back.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, man. So before we wrap it up, we're going to start implementing this little section. We actually asked for a question from a listener. It's kind of like an Ask It Basic type deal. And today the question is from a guy named Jackie W. And he says, how do I know when I have toted enough wood and water?
Tell JW I said to kiss my fat white boy ass. How about that?
Oh boy. Hey Ryan, man, we've sure appreciated you being on here, man. Is there anything going on, event or anything going on at your home group, or something you're involved in that you'd like to make it an NA related announcement on here?
I can't think of nothing right this minute, other than our Sunday morning NA Port in the Storm, 10:30 on Sunday morning Central Time speaker meeting that we do every Sunday. And that don't have nothing to do with my home group. That's just me and Terry. But
yeah, and we'll get the information of that, and we'll post it underneath. We'll post a link underneath this podcast in that, so people can check that out if they want to. Y'all do that every Sunday morning.
Yeah, my buddy Richard S. is talking this coming Sunday. Give you a chance to get to know him. He's got, I don't know, mid to late 20s clean, and he ain't been here but a couple of years. He moved here from Florida.
All right. All right, Ryan. Well, we sure appreciate it, man. And thank you for doing this.
Man, thank y'all for asking me. It was fun. I mean, it's 30 minutes has gone by pretty quick.
It sure has. All right, that's all we got for the podcast this week. We'll be back. We're going to try to do this weekly. We will try to post every Monday night. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us on our Living Clean podcast. This is another platform that we can share our message of recovery, which is an addict, any addict, can stop using drugs, lose a desire to use, and find a new way to live. Join that no matter what club. You can contact us through text. The number is 931-306-9364.